After that night, I knew there was no turning back. Whatever I had stumbled upon, it wasn't just a strange broadcast. It was alive. It had intent. And it had chosen me. I started digging into the station's history. WLMR had been around since the early 1950s, a local AM and FM hybrid that had survived decades by sheer stubbornness. Most of the older employees had retired or vanished quietly. Some whispered about the lost broadcast, a signal supposedly shut down in the late 70s after a mysterious incident. Nobody would say what really happened. I found old newspaper clippings in the town library. Headlines like WLMR crew missing after late-night broadcast. Authorities investigate strange signal interference at local station. The articles were vague. The crew, all 5 of them, had vanished during a night shift. No bodies were found. No explanation given. Only a single line in one report caught my eye. The frequency continued transmitting, even after power loss. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. That's exactly what I had heard. Determined, I returned to the station that evening, bringing a small tape recorder of my own, hoping to capture the signal again. The air outside was thick with fog, rolling low over the streets like spectral hands reaching for me. Inside, the station smelled like metal and old dust, as if time itself had congealed within the walls. I turned on the equipment and the dial spun of its own accord, settling at 98.7 megahertz. And then it began. Not just one voice this time, dozens. Layered, overlapping whispers and cries, names being called, fragments of conversations I couldn't place. We are waiting, waiting, waiting. Find us before they take you. You should have stayed away. The voices were fractured, like echoes trapped between life and death. I realized, with a sickening clarity, that they weren't all human. Some of them sounded wrong, hollow, stretched, like sound bent unnaturally. Then one voice pierced through the chaos. My name, my real name, spoken with urgency. Jonathan, you've come. We can't leave. I stumbled back from the console, knocking over my chair. The radio speakers crackled violently, the static rising into a scream-like pitch that rattled my skull. And then the lights went out. For a long moment, I couldn't see, but I could feel it. The room had changed. The air was thicker, heavier, like it had mass. Shapes moved in the corners of my vision, too dark to be shadows, too deliberate to be tricks of the eye. And then I saw them, faint, translucent forms, barely more than silhouettes, moving along the walls. Their faces were indistinct, blurred, but their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. They drifted toward the radio console, converging on the dial, their whispers blending into a chorus of pleading and warning. We can't stop them. They are hungry. The tape recorder I had brought began playing on its own, capturing sounds I didn't recognize. Static intertwined with voices, a garbled melody that seemed older than the building itself. And then, almost imperceptibly, the sound of a heartbeat, not mine, not human, but deep and resonant, vibrating the floor beneath my feet. I realized, with a terror that rooted me to the spot, that the voices were trying to communicate a warning I didn't understand yet. Then the dial spun violently, landing on a frequency that didn't exist, and a single clear voice emerged from the chaos. "Do not leave here alone." And the lights flickered back on. The room looked normal again. No shapes, no fog, no heartbeat. Only the faint smell of ozone lingered. But my recorder, it was full of sounds, voices, whispers, and a single message repeated 3 times, chillingly clear. "They are coming for you." Through the airwaves. I realized then that the signal wasn't just a haunted relic of the past. It was a gateway, a bridge connecting the living to something older, something patient, something that waited for anyone who dared listen. And the lost crew, they hadn't vanished. They had become part of the frequency, trapped between worlds, whispering endlessly to warn the next listener. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard static. Every time I tried to focus, I heard my name called in that distorted, pleading tone. And worst of all, the whispers didn't stay in my head. They began leaking into the walls of the town itself. I heard them faintly through the phones, radios, even the old intercom at my apartment. And I realized with dawning horror, the frequency was spreading. It wasn't done. It had found me. I couldn't stay at WLMR anymore. The voices followed me home, slipping through every device I owned. Televisions, radios, even my old cassette player seemed alive. I started carrying a small analog receiver everywhere, hoping to catch the signal before it caught me completely. But the deeper I chased it, the more I understood it wasn't just a frequency. It was a being, something ancient, something that fed on attention, on fear, on the living. I decided to go back to the source, the abandoned WLMR transmitter site located 3 miles outside of town in the old forested hills. Nobody had been there for decades. Local kids whispered that it was haunted, that the ghosts of the old crew walked among the towers. But I didn't care anymore. I had to know what had started all this. The forest was silent, unnaturally silent, as I approached it. The skeletal tower loomed above me, rusted and swaying in the cold wind. The building itself was half collapsed, boarded windows revealing darkness so complete it felt solid. My flashlight cut swaths through the black, revealing peeling paint, dust, and the remnants of forgotten life. I found the control room frozen in time. Tape reels were stacked on shelves, covered in decades of dust. Most were labeled with innocuous show names, but one section stood out. A small cabinet, locked with the number 98.7 etched into the wood. My hands shook as I forced it open. Inside were 5 tapes. Each was labeled with a name, The Lost Crew, and each carried a warning scratched into the casing in desperate handwriting. Do not play. They are listening. Of course, I played the first one. The static hissed, and then came the voices, not human this time, but something inhuman. Low, resonant tones vibrating through the floor, through the walls, through me. Then I heard them. The crew, trapped in their own voices, screaming silently beneath the distortion. They were alive, somehow, but only as part of the signal. The tape whispered my name, Jonathan. Do not open the gateway. It waits. I froze. The air grew heavy, and the shadows lengthened unnaturally. Shapes moved along the edges of my vision, humanoid, but twisted, flickering in and out of sight. My flashlight flickered and died, leaving me in darkness deeper than night. And then I heard it. The entity itself, a voice that wasn't human, a chorus of everything that had ever died on the airwaves, distorted into something alive. It whispered in tones that bypassed thought, burrowing directly into my mind. You listened. You opened the door. Now you belong to us. I stumbled backward, tripping over broken furniture. The tapes flew from the shelf, spinning in the air like leaves caught in a windstorm. The entity's voice grew louder, filling the room, vibrating the walls, the floor, the very air around me. You can't stop us. We are eternal, through every frequency, every signal. We will find you. I fell to my knees, covering my ears, but it was no use. The sound didn't exist outside my mind. It was inside me. And then, just as suddenly, it stopped. Silence crashed down like a physical weight. I sat in the dark, trembling, the tapes scattered around me. Outside, the wind whispered through the tower, carrying faint fragments of the voices I had heard before. Find the next listener. Feed, continue. I realized then the horrifying truth. The entity didn't just haunt radio frequencies. It needed people like me, people who listened, who obeyed, who carried the tapes forward. And now I was one of them. Part of its chain, bound to its signal, haunted by voices I could never escape. I took one tape, the first crew members, and left the building. I didn't look back, but I knew the entity followed, riding the frequencies in the static, already reaching for me. I would never be alone again. That night, I returned home and set up my own station, a small, clandestine analog rig in the basement. I couldn't stop the signal. I could only keep it contained, or so I told myself. And when I broadcast the voice of the lost crew, I know someone, somewhere, is listening. Somewhere, the entity waits.